I'm so glad you were able to do this now, because I really appreciated, I believe it was your op-ed in Newsweek, where you wrote about, Joe Biden being asked to step down because of his mental capacity and whatnot. Who would be the replacement? And your top line, your thesis was, this is a centrist fight. This is a centrist fight because they pushed Joe Biden on us, on the entire country, when there were many other candidates, and Bernie Sanders was obviously the closest contender. And kind of a let them fight moment. And now they've fought. They have chosen, and all delegates, state delegates, as well as most politicians, including potentially those who might run against her, have endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for president. Just, it's been a week. She's raised $200 million. She's got mass calls. There's these Zoom meetings and folks getting activated, including, white dudes for Kamala, which is both cringe and funny at the same time. She is cringe and funny at the same time. But what's your broad takeaway, sort of, especially speaking to like the left at this moment, as we see what's happening, and how are you feeling right now?
Oh, thank you, Francesca. I know we've been planning to get me on the Bitchuation room for a long time. I'm glad I'm here, and I can't wait to come back. So for me, it is that op-ed that I wrote in Newsweek. I would ask the progressive left to go and read that article and really read it deeply. My premise here, Francesca, is that we don't have a candidate in terms of who speaks to a total or holistic moral clarity.
Mm-hmm.
We had that in 2016, and no candidate is perfect, by the way. We had that in 2020. Dr. Cornel West, as you know, is running as an independent. If he were running as a Democrat, I would say that he comes the closest. He would be spectacular in terms of having that moral clarity domestically and internationally. So since neoliberals put us in this situation by hiding what was happening to the president, and granted, there is no shame in aging. We all are going to age, and people age differently. So I want people to be clear about this. However, running for president again, when you know that some of your faculties are not as strong as they once were. I mean, Francesca, the campaign trail is rigorous. Man, I mean, I did it in 2016. I did it in 2020. And let me tell you something, it is hard. So there's a difference between campaigning and governing. And that was the part where President Biden fell down. So Francesca, for me, it is now that they have chosen their candidate, and I am a member of the DNC from Ohio, 4 months out, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, people are talking about having an open convention. We ain't got time. As much as I would like, the time for open primary was last year or 2 years ago. And so people like me who had the courage, the intestinal fortitude to say that, were called traitors and haters. And why you bumping up against President Biden? Why you enabling Trump? Fast forward to 2024, Francesca, and isn't it funny how when the big money interests said that President Biden had to go, oh my gosh, so many politicians got that money courage.
Right.
To tell the truth about what the situation was for Democrats. So here we are. I still contend that progressives must continue to push policy, must try to get the most progressive vice president candidate that we can, knowing it will not be, this person will not holistically be everything that we want them to be. And then should the Harris blank ticket win, bring the heat.
Absolutely.
Heat.
And the heat is being brought now, actually, on all sides. And I wanted to play this clip for you of, obviously, Senator Sanders, who you know very well. And here he is on MSNBC, and he has not yet endorsed Kamala Harris for president. And that is really interesting. I don't know if it's surprising, but here is some of his rationale.
We know that there's a lot of big money in the Democratic Party. We want to make sure that the vice president is listening to the working class of this country, to progressives as well, and brings forth very specific ideas. These are not radical ideas. Expanding Medicare by lifting the cap, expanding Social Security, building housing. These are not radical ideas.
No.
And I would hope very much that we get some specificity
Is that, in order to get that specificity, is that conversation happening in real time right now? Are you in that conversation with the vice president, or your people in the conversation with the vice president's campaign?
Well, I have talked to the vice president and look forward to speaking to her again in the near future. And yeah, that conversation is going on.
So there you have it. Bernie Sanders not quite ready, saying, we need to see more out of Harris. And we do know that most of the big labor unions, SEIU, AFL-CIO, have endorsed Harris. UAW and Sean O'Brien have not, or
Sean Fain.
Sorry, yes, the Teamsters. Excuse me, UAW and Sean Fain. UAW has, or am I?
No, UAW and Sean Fain have not endorsed.
Have not yet, and the Teamsters also. I get my Sean's confused. Have not yet. So that's an interest.
Teamsters have endorsed Trump
officially.
Their president spoke at the.
Yes, I do know. They spoke at the RNC. That is wild. I hadn't read that the Teamsters had endorsed him.
Well,
I know there's
but to me, if your president is speaking at the RNC,
yes, tacitly.
Yeah,
we delved into that last week. It was wild. And so just before I kick it to you, I did want to say, Bernie's right in that there's a lot of big money on the other side. In fact, there's reporting now that two Silicon Valley billionaires, because the Democrats have a bunch of them as well. They don't always show up for a lot of people, but billionaires who like co-founder of LinkedIn and Expedia are asking Harris to get rid of FTC chair Lena Khan in order to for them to feel comfortable enough donating massive sums of money to Harris's campaign. Again, Lena Khan's gone after Google, Amazon, all for antitrust, all for these, anti-competitive behavior. But your reaction to sort of like holding out and waiting and seeing.
I mean, two things. Everything that the senator laid out is absolutely correct. But there's a however, and I've been getting lots of calls, text messages from people who are concerned or ask the question, did he have that same measure for Joseph R. Biden? In other words, there needs to be some consistency here. Now, Senator Sanders probably feels like he is being consistent on this, but that is there. And I've had several conversations with people who are trying to answer that. But just holistically, yeah, the senator is right. I think every person should hold out, whether you are an elected official with a fancy title or whether you big mama and big papa in the hoods all over this country. You need to ask what Janet Jackson asked in one of her most famous songs. What have you done for me lately? That's number one. And number two, what do you plan to do for me in the near future? Like in a New York minute. That's fair and that is reasonable. Nobody should be just endorsing somebody wholesale just because they're running. What are you standing for? Period, Francesca. And that is, I mean, we haven't gotten to what I'm bitching about, but that's part of.
I got so waylaid. Senator, I'm all over the place, but keep going. We can actually, why don't we just do it? What are you bitching about?
I'm bitching about, I can't believe we're in this situation right now. I mean, I don't know if we are in a multiverse or the damn Twilight Zone, but this is wild. Don't you think? I mean, this is a roller coaster like no other. I mean, if somebody had told me in 2020 that in 2024, we would be in this kind of situation, I would have never, ever believed it. And it is sad. And one of the reasons why it is sad is because we know the Republicans have lost their ever-loving minds. There may be a few who still got a little bit of it left. Sure. But just generally speaking, they have lost it. They are obsessed with shit that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
And as you laid out in Project 2025, and now we're doing what, Agenda 47?
Right.
Whatever it is total madness that you have a bunch of men mainly, because there's some women in the group too. Okay, I hate to say it, but it is.
Oh, there are.
Yeah, women are not, above it. But it's just madness that they really want to control people's autonomy, their bodies. And I thought that was supposed to be the party of freedom. So, and then on the Democratic side, you wait until 4 months in one of the most consequential presidential elections. You say, my party says that Trump is a threat to democracy. Mm-hmm. And we wait 4 months to try to change candidates. That messes with me, because you know what, Francesca, all of the people in the bubble, they're going to be okay. Their kids are going to be okay. Their kids are going to be okay. Their kids are going to be okay. While I am mad, it's because there is a 50-50 chance, right, that either one of these candidates can win.
Right.
And because my party, the Democratic Party, levied that Donald J. Trump is a threat to democracy, if he really is a threat, and I know he's a neo-fascist, but I'm just saying, if he really is a threat that my party says that he is, why in the hell would you play games with this? See, some of them people, Francesca, knew that President Joseph R. Biden was not going to make it through this, but they was going to ride that horse, baby. If he could have made it through, they still would be doing it. But because the difference between campaigning and governing, they saw that he couldn't make it. The moneyed interests jumped in and said, wait a minute, we're going to dry up all the money, baby, if y'all don't change him. You see how that worked? Like a few people had to kick this man out from running. But if you are a progressive that just says, let's just have an open primary. Let's just primary this thing. You are the traitor. I need somebody to make that make sense for me. Francesca.
No, I mean, right. I mean, it's like let us, circle the wagons around our boy, and we get rid of all the criticism that isn't coming within a very select few people. And then we'll listen to this criticism that, is just this very, very narrow sliver of mostly white preppy pundits. And I'm glad they did. I mean, let's be real. I'm glad they did. And I also yes, before I kick it to you, I also think the 700,000 Americans that voted uncommitted because of Biden's policies in Gaza, we have to claim that as a win for part of the reason why he stepped down.
Yeah. And just the other point I wanted to put through, and I agree with you on uncommitted. I mean, I was right there with uncommitted, support everything that they did. It's about humanity here, and they had the guts to stand up for humanity, because but by the grace of God, that could be any of us. And that's how I think about issues of this magnitude. But I want us to go back in time to when former HUD Secretary Julian Castro in 2020, people may remember this, he ran for president, and he made a comment about President Biden's cognitive ability. They banished him.
Yep.
See, so you get banished for telling the truth, but as long as you want to go along to get along, it's okay. So yeah, that's what I'm bitching about, Francesca, because I'm concerned about Big Mama and Big Papa and their kids and their kids' kids and their kids and their kids' from the hoods all over this country, whether they urban, rural, suburban. I'm mad as hell about it.
Yeah. And to leave it up, I mean, I do think we're in a better position, we meaning people who don't want Trump, I guess, if that's the biggest coalition, even though the coalition hates people actually trying to put forward real change. But, we got poll numbers now, and the Hill sort of summarized a lot of them, basically said across the board, these numbers are significant improvement for Democrats compared to a similar survey from earlier this month with Biden. Harris outperformed Biden by 3 points in Michigan and Pennsylvania, 4 points in Arizona and Wisconsin, and 5 points in Georgia. And the Fox News polls of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, 3 states that gave Trump the presidency in 2016 before flipping back to Biden in 2020, found the race similarly competitive. Trump was up 1 point in Wisconsin, tied with Harris in Michigan and Pennsylvania. So, yes, it is 50-50 in a lot of places, but it's better than it was with Biden.
But you're not surprised by that, Francesca, are you? I mean, the American people spoke a while ago, poll after poll, and I know polls are snapshots in time, but the poll's been snapping the same way since they've been taken. Right. I don't want us to lose sight of this. The majority of American people did not want to see a rematch between former President Donald J. Trump and President Joseph R. Biden. They already told us what they wanted. It's just that the moneyed interests and the power interests decided to ignore what the American people really wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we leave, Vice President Harris, I did want to ask you, because I wanted to ask you what your thoughts on how Kamala Harris's race and gender play into this campaign, or how they will play. We've seen the right call her a DEI candidate. We've also seen the right say, "Oh, don't call her a DEI candidate. Let's pretend we're not racist for the next 4 months." But you also see, I think, some progressives and some leftists sort of getting prickly, I would call it, about her identity, as if that's being used as a shield for some of her policies that are more centrist, whatnot. And so I have thoughts on that, but I guess I wanted to get your opinion on how you see her race and her gender playing into this, I guess, especially from on the Democratic and on the progressive left side?
Yeah, it always plays. So I wrote another op-ed, and the title was "Can a Black Woman Become President?" Newsweek. I encourage people because it goes really deep. Her race and gender are going to play a role because that's called the United States of America, period. And unfortunately, the Republicans are doing the modern day Republicans, because the historian in me is thinking about the radical Republicans who did it a little differently.
Right.
But today's Republican is showing that, calling her a DEI candidate, an affirmative action candidate. Well, you know what, Francesca, there have been 46 presidents in these United States of America, and 45 of the 46 were white men. So we want to talk about affirmative action.
Right.
Let's talk about affirmative action.
Right.
President Obama needed a certain type of vice president, right? So in some way, we could say that Joseph R. Biden was the DEI vice president.
100%.
Let's do that. Now, the vice president is going to deal with misogynoir. She is just race and gender. That is America. Unfortunately, we have not evolved enough. We've evolved somewhat, but not enough. And I believe she can handle that. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. However, let me go and speak to these progressives. They need to be careful when barking up that tree. Now, Francesca, I've dealt with some progressives who are just as bigoted, just as anti-Black. What, us? Oh, yeah, as the average neoliberal. It was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and also Minister Malcolm X who were very clear in their description of white liberals. I encourage our audience, like I'm adopting your audience now, Francesca. I encourage our audience to go and look up exactly what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said about white liberals and what Minister Malcolm X said about white liberals. White progressives, as much as I know it's going to pain them, they take up some of that same shadowing. You have to deconstruct your construction. Now, however, there's a however to this. If in fact, neoliberals in particular, because Black people didn't write this script, want to try to run cover to say that people who have concerns about policy should not have those concerns, should not ask those questions, then that's wrong. Because whoever wants to be in the first chair, I don't care who you are. If you want to be in the first chair and you ultimately get to the first chair, then everybody in this country has a right to question you. Of course. And make demands of you. Now, there's a certain way that the progressives should handle this, but if in fact race and gender is being used as a shield, I ain't for it. Right. If you have a legitimate policy concern or gripe, then let's put that out there. But if it's something else that has mostly to do with her gender and her identity, all of her identities, something is wrong with you. And the Republican Party is using it in one of the most bigoted ways. But I don't hear them say a word about how 46 of the last 46 vice presidents have been white men, and 45 of the last 46 presidents have been white men. So
indeed. Before we move on, I'm reminded, look, Nancy Pelosi has played a role here, right? She, in large part was responsible for ousting Joe Biden, but that also apparently, again, the whispers was that she wasn't really sold on Kamala Harris as vice president. And I'm reminded, for those of you who obviously no fan of Hillary Clinton, but I do think the sexist attacks on her were wrong. I also think, yes, some of the Pantsuit Nation stuff, incredibly cringy. Nancy Pelosi, when Hillary Clinton lost, said openly, it's because she played into the woman thing too much. So when you say that neolibs and some leftists get a little, are also in agreement with some of this, low-key misogynistic anti-identity politics stuff, it's true that even Nancy Pelosi being like, she shouldn't have talked about being a woman, that wasn't her problem. Her problem that no one wanted her policies and she wasn't inspiring. Not that she, played fight song, even though we like to make fun of it. So I'm just like, let's watch ourselves, because trust when the centrists also want white guys.
Come on, talk about it, Francesca. And listen, we are all socialized in this nation the same way.
Yeah.
And there's some of us who transcend That's socialization. So we have to deconstruct our construction. This is a professor and me coming out. That's what this comes down to in this moment. Now, you had mentioned, I don't know if you know that you did this, but you like white dudes for
yeah,
Harris,
white dudes for Kamala. Yeah,
you know what? It's ridiculous. All right, all of that stuff is ridiculous. You hit a point when you said playing into. So we're gonna have white dudes, we're gonna have Latinas we got white women trying to up the black woman call. Ridiculous. How about people who support her? Damn it, people just come together and support. You know what I mean? Why are we separating in that way? You just reinforcing the BS on this. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have. I know they're trying to be cute with it, Francesca. They need to leave that cuteness and the comedy to you and other comedians.
Thank you.
Just assemble people from all backgrounds who support the vice president being the next president of the United States of America. They will bring all of their identities with them, and let's roll on. But that white dude, it just sent me over the top. I said, I'm tired. I'm tired.
It's very performative. Like it's just performative. And but like if you were to organize by state, like that makes sense. Let's organize by places that actually matter, but yeah.
They're trying to be too cute. And you brought up former leaders Pelosi. So let me just say this. Most of the politicians, the actively elected folks, particularly on the federal level, who got religion about pushing this current president out. And make no mistake, he was pushed out. And maybe we could do a whole show on that. They all of a sudden got that courage because their owner donors told them to. I want your viewers to understand, our viewers, I'm adopting y'all, to know I have no respect. I have zero respect for the Johnny and Jill come latelys on pushing out President Biden because the donors told them it was okay to do so. They knew, and former Speaker Pelosi was probably one of those. Congressman Clyburn was another, and others who saw this president day after day and really did not give a damn.
Right.
They have no courage.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.